Joining me now are Jennifer Palmieri, former communications director for the Obama White House and the Hillary Clinton 2016 campaign. She is, of course, co-host of the How to Win podcast. Also with me is Jonathan Martin, senior political columnist for Politico, who we have quoted just almost pornographically in this segment tonight. Jen, let me just start.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Jen, let me start with you first. Your reaction to Christie deciding to leave this race with, I'm going to call it sort of a messy exit on a hot mic.
God. I mean, it is classic. Jonathan had his great piece this morning described the Republican primary as dulcetory, and so it was like it was the best speech of the dulcetory primary. But then, of course, he steps on it by trashing the person who is most set to gain, to benefit from him leaving the primary. But still, I think that, okay, given where we are, that is, as you laid out, unlikely that Trump gets less than 50% on Monday night. Unlikely that somebody upsets the apple cart here. But if they were, this is the kind of thing you need to have happen. You need some unexpected thing to happen on Wednesday night before Monday night in Iowa. And maybe this helps. It was a very convincing, moving speech. Iowa did not pick Donald Trump in 2016. They picked Ted Cruz. So there's, it is not the strongest state for him. And this could help just give her more momentum, even in Iowa, to come in strong, second in Iowa, and then go into New Hampshire.
Do you, Jonathan,
J-Mart's fine.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, we're all friends here. I'm almost interested in the Haley Christie support as a measure of potential Biden areas of growth that I am actually in Nikki Haley running away with this thing for the reasons I think you much more articulately lay out in your piece. How do you read Christie's exit and Nikki Haley's going to get smoked in terms of the broader contours of the GOP primary field?
Well, I think the first thing it does, Alex, is that it gives Nikki Haley an opportunity with one debate tonight and 4 more days to go before the Iowa caucuses to say to both the kind of Ron DeSantis leaner and the on the fence Iowa voter generally, that don't want Trump, to say, you guys don't want Trump, give me a clean shot in New Hampshire, Iowa. And the way you give me a clean shot in New Hampshire is you get me the second here. That way DeSantis drops out of the race, and it's basically me and Trump in New Hampshire. So I'm really curious to see, first off, how she can parlay Christie leaving, not in New Hampshire, but in Iowa first, for the kind of pool of pragmatic voters here who mostly want to stop Trump. And then beyond that, let's see if she can actually beat Trump head-to-head in New Hampshire. I think that would obviously be significant. I think losing by 8 to 9 isn't the same thing for the reasons that we were just talking about, because she then goes to South Carolina, where the demography once again looks more like Iowa, and that's just very tough for her to survive.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan raises in his piece the sort of specter over all of this is class, right?
Right. Yeah.
This idea of
class and education.
Yeah, almost sort of wrapped together or twinned in some ways. And the reality is that the Republican Party, as it stands en masse, is not the upscale Ron Brownstein Pinot swilling or whatever he calls them, Barbaresco swilling red wines.
Track.
Exactly.
Wine track. It's good.
The wine track.
Yeah.
And for that reason alone, it almost doesn't. I mean, Nikki Haley can condense the voting bloc, but it's never going to be as big as Donald Trump.
In 2020, it felt like we were together in 2020 covering the Iowa caucuses and the New Hampshire primary.
It's too much power for them to handle. Just too much energy.
We broke the Iowa caucuses. We did. But it felt like just very synthetic, because Iowa and New Hampshire, for both Democrats and Republicans, don't really reflect the demographic of the party writ large, or the country writ large. And so it's very, and also, Iowa and New Hampshire matter. It mattered a lot for Barack Obama when he won in 2008, because Hillary Clinton was the front runner, and also it was a question of, can a black candidate win in a very white state? So that was huge. Right. It really meant something. But when the last Republican nominee to win the Iowa caucus and become the nominee was George W. Bush. And, you know, so these states just don't reflect what the ultimate party, who really is going to decide who the nominee is.
Do you think I'm off track when suggesting that if you're Joe Biden, who's not running, who's not on the New Hampshire ticket,
he's not on the New Hampshire ticket, right?
Foregoing it for South Carolina for the Democratic primary process. But am I wrong in thinking, like, if you're Biden, you look at who's in that audience of Christie voters,
right?
You look at who's in the audience of Haley voters, and you're like, listen, these guys ultimately aren't going to get the Republican they want at the top of the ticket. Can I bring them over to my side of the table?
That is why Biden has led in polls in New Hampshire, you know, and a lot of battleground states he does not do well. But I mean, Jay Mart will know the ultimate latest. But I know, but I say he wins in New Hampshire, and that's like, why is that? Because we've been hearing Chris Christie, you know, beat the crap out of Donald Trump for months in New Hampshire.
It mattered.
So I do think that you know, I think that, you know, his critique and what he said tonight is kind of like what Liz Cheney said, which is like, I am going to sort of said I'm going to do everything in my power to stop Trump from becoming president.
Jay Mart, the draft Biden or the write-in Biden campaign in New Hampshire is saying effectively, you know, we welcome any backers of Chris Christie who want to truly stand against Trump to join us in writing in Joe Biden, and saying Nikki Haley is not the solution. Do you think Christie voters are there? Do you think Haley voters are thinking in the back of their mind, I might ultimately have to pull the lever for Joe Biden?
Well, I think absolutely there's a significant chunk of them. And by the way, that was smart of the write-in Biden folks to pounce like they did with that statement, because there are a lot of New Hampshire voters who are trying to figure out right now which ballot to pull, the R ballot or the D ballot. Look, I was with Nikki supporters yesterday in suburban Des Moines, and I can tell you from talking to a lot of them that some of them will reluctantly pull the lever for Trump this fall if he's the nominee. But there's no question that some of them just can't get there again. And that, I think, guys, gets to the key question. If this is going to be Trump versus Biden again, does that 20%, mostly upscale, mostly college educated, of the old Bush-era GOP, do they get back to Biden like a lot of them did 4 years ago? Do they, you know, come back to Trump, or do they find somebody else? And this is why the No Labels effort is so significant, because if they put a third-party candidate on the ballot that's a moderate Republican, I think that's an escape hatch, Alex, for the very voter that you're talking about right now.
Yeah, what's so abundantly clear is it's going to be on. I mean, we say this every year, but truly the margins are going to be so tight. The Washington Post analysis is just, we are so polarized. There's no one left in the middle. And it's literally like, can you find me 5 voters that are swing voters in the state of Michigan? Biden's going to Michigan and Nevada. I mean, if you're Joe Biden,
he's going back to Pennsylvania for a second time in 1 week on Friday too. Yeah.
What I mean,
he's moving. You know, and like they're like, general election is now. We are going.
And I mean, how when you think about the potential support he has maybe lost, not forever, but is soft in communities that really matter when margins are like this, and beyond when margins are like this, Arab American community outside of Detroit. You know, hotel and casino workers in Las Vegas and Nevada. I mean, how quickly can those numbers what needs to happen right now?
So I think for everybody who's been worried about the Biden campaign, you should look at the last week and feel really good, because basically they're like, okay, you know, January 5th went to Valley Forge. It's like, okay, general election has started, and it laid out the very strong critique against Trump, everything we expected, you know, revenge. Right. I am your retribution. He'll be a dictator on day one, like reminding everyone of the greatest hits of all the, you know, the terrible reasons why he shouldn't be president. But then goes to South Carolina, and embedded in the South Carolina speech, which was also very moving because it's in the, you know, the sacred church and the terrible shooting there, was the argument to black voters and about the accomplishments. You know, what they want to show people is your vote mattered. We're not saying that everything is great, but what they have to do is get back voters that supported him in 2020. That's easier than getting people who voted against you in 2020. And what they have to do is say, you voted for me and it mattered and it had this impact. And you see that embedded in his remarks in South Carolina, the vice president's remarks when she was in South Carolina. He's going to Nevada, important Hispanic audience there. Michigan, concerned about 300,000 Arab American voters in Michigan. He got booed, and he had a protester in South Carolina, somebody who stood up and protested for a ceasefire. He handled it well. He's like, I hear you. I respect your passion. They expect that's going to happen in Michigan. They're going to deal with it. But they are rolling. They're like, and we are making both arguments at the same time. We're making the big general argument pitch defining Trump, but then also the narrow casting. To very specific demographics about why they should vote for him.
Yeah, Jamar, I think for people who don't know, the level of precision guiding these campaigns, it's like, do you like high-waisted jeans, Dunkin' Donuts, and pickleball? Come vote. Like, we're having a Biden support group for you.
Oh, I'm being targeted here. Listening to Jen, I'm thinking to myself here, obviously Biden's got challenges on both flanks, right? He has to get back the center-right, Liz Cheney, Republican, and make sure that they don't vote Trump or that they don't take the third-party temptation. But just as important, he's going to face a challenge on his left flank from Jill Stein and perhaps Cornel West. And, Jen, I'm sort of curious for your view on that. I think Biden is either going to have to find a way to get a ceasefire in the Middle East and or get Bibi out of office. Otherwise, he's going to face perhaps the biggest threat he has with voters under the age of 40. I don't think Biden can win next year if Stein and West are on the ballot and the war in Gaza is still raging. I think it's very difficult.
Jamar, just as a precondition to the hardest won battle maybe in modern American presidential politics, it's get a ceasefire in Gaza or get Bibi out of office. To say that this is going to be a challenging political environment is an understatement. My friends, please come back. We have to leave it there. Jennifer Palmieri and Jonathan Martin, better known as J Mart. Thank you both for your time, my friends.